Remember when Jensen Huang said that new graphics cards weren't coming for a long time?
When's the next GeForce? The next, I'm going to invite you guys. Don't worry. I promise, you guys, not only will you be invited, there'll probably be lunch. There was a question back there. I won't forget you, I promise.
Can't you give us a little hint?
Yeah.
A little hint?
Yeah, maybe it's hiding behind that. It's hiding behind that.
It's a long time from now. It's a long time from now.
That's a direct quote, and we took him at his word. I mean, he's the CEO of NVIDIA after all. And this announcement was largely attributed to the inventory influx. Many referenced a report that nearly 300,000 graphics cards were returned by a single AIB, meaning Gigabyte or EVGA or MSI. One of them returned quite a few, either because they didn't sell or because customers wanted refunds. Either way, it's bad news. But massive contracts like these must be fulfilled regardless of market ups and downs. That's why they exist in the first place, and that may just open the door for enthusiast gamers and builders like ourselves. So let me give you some context. Let's say EVGA enters into a contract with NVIDIA, whereby they agree to absorb large inventory levels spread out over a given time period. These are usually PCBs, even if they manufacture their own third-party PCBs. The stuff comes from NVIDIA, the GPUs, the memory, all that is contracted in. So in the case of Pascal, that contract might last 2 or 3 years, and most AIBs don't sell generation-old equipment once the new stuff rolls out. And that makes sense. Demand typically shifts right immediately from the old stuff to the new stuff once the next-gen stuff hits the market. And like every new release, there's always a last-minute splurge of fresh deals on new but almost old hardware. So in this case, we expect to find some great deals on GTX 1070s, 1080s, and even 1080 Ti's. The lower-end cards are an exception, and we'll discuss that more shortly, but if you're a savvy hunter on sites like Amazon and Newegg, I know I am, I check almost every day, you've likely noticed some great 1070 and 1080 deals. Currently, 1080s are selling for as low as $450, which is roughly what 1070s cost new when they were first released. This is great news, signifying a sharp rebound from mining craze prices when 1080s were going for as much as $1,000 and above, just a little ridiculous. Taking a look at PC part picker price trends, we see 1070 prices leveling out now at around 400 USD, whereas in January of this year, things had peaked to near 800 USD, and they were selling at that price, which is why the market was at equilibrium. A similar inflection occurred for higher tier cards, just gonna throw that out there. But today, we can see how things have actually leveled off at or below original MSRP. Keep in mind that the black line is the overall average, but several cards are selling for lower than this price. Quick glances at Newegg and Amazon, like I said, reveal fairly competitive prices, RTX announcements aside. GTX 1060s and 1050 Ti's and even 1050s, however, have struggled to retain original prices post-bubble. 6GB 1060s launched for roughly $250 back in 2016, but today, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything for less than $300. 3GB models, sure, there's plenty of those out there, but you'll be limiting yourself in certain titles, and at this point, I don't recommend buying a 3GB 1060. The reasons for resilient prices in these categories, though, are limited in scope. Simply put, these cards were less affected by the mining bubble. They were neither as popular nor as efficient as their 1070 and RX counterparts, so they didn't sell in the eyes of miners. Gamers looking for high-end cards were forced down the spectrum to 1060s and 1050s, which were already extremely popular to begin with. It's starting to thunder outside. That's not good. That means you guys might hear some weird rumbling. I apologize for that. But look, budget-minded gamers were always interested in 1060s and 1050s anyway. Just take a look at the Steam survey. There is a huge jump when it comes to 1060 use over the past 2 years, since the launch basically, and that's because they're some of the best gaming cards for the money. So I don't advise purchasing a lower tier graphics card at this time unless you need one right away. We just aren't sure what NVIDIA will do in the coming months with this category. It usually takes them a while longer to roll out the lower tier cards in each generation, and the prices just aren't competitive enough to recommend given their levels of performance. I mean, used 980 Ti's, 980s, and 970s will do just fine in the $200 to $300 market if you're looking for something that's a little cheaper than a 1060 that will give you comparable performance. But anything higher than this, and you've got some serious thinking to do, and that's why this video exists. I've already milked the NVIDIA RTX launch, so I won't spend much time talking about it here. You can check out these videos on the cards up top or in the video description if you want more context into the launch, what I thought about it, and what you should expect. Instead, what I want to throw out here are a few scenarios, right, to help you relate, because you might be wondering if purchasing now is even an option. So scenario A, RTX is everything a gamer wanted. 50+% performance increases per tier over previous Pascal cards, great drivers out of the gate, and suboptimal prices. I think that's the politically correct term to use in the midst of NVIDIA fanboys. Remember, opinions based on historical context are considered clickbait in 2018, folks, so be careful out there. So with this scenario, the obvious reaction is to wait, right, for the launch and dump money into the new family of GPUs, right? Well, no, and this is why pre-ordering is stupid. Even if we assume a comparable performance jump with that of Maxwell to Pascal, the price jumps between each tier narrow the playing field because RTX across the board is more expensive. An RTX 2070 may bring 1080 Ti performance with a lower TDP, but compared to last gen's margins, it's lackluster, even assuming that roughly 50% performance jump, which I have a strong feeling won't be the case for these cards. We're looking at maybe 25 to 40%. Give or take. So these suspicions again are explained in the previous videos that I pointed to. The Maxwell to Pascal jump was so significant because the 980 Ti performance could be had in a 1070 for $400, which saved the consumer nearly $250 on average. But this time around, the margins for consumers are slim or non-existent. And that's again stressing the assumptions here that the 2070 will actually pull out 1080 Ti performance and that the 2080 Ti will be like this huge jump over the 1080 Ti, which we'll see. It is possible given the CUDA-core disparity, but several additional factors are at play, and those are again discussed in the previous videos. Now let's move on to scenario 2. RTX performance is subpar. We're seeing roughly 20% performance gains with this assumption over Pascal tier for tier, and in this case, choosing to wait for the launch is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, you'd have to know the yields of these cards beforehand, but let's ignore that for now. Obviously, gains are gains, and we should expect Turing gaming cards to outlast their inferiors, but this is where the margins truly matter, which is why pre-ordering under any sense makes absolutely no sense. What if we assume your plan was to pre-order an RTX 2070? One of those may run you, what, around $600 or so, and a 1080 Ti may cost around the same or less depending on when you buy it. But you run the risk of the 2070 pushing fewer frames at higher settings than the 1080 Ti. This again is where the margins really matter. Is that a risk you'd be willing to take on account of a pre-order? Because in that scenario, you'd be better off just buying a 1080 Ti and maybe saving some money in the long run.
Inside Turing is 18.9 billion transistors. This GPU, this chip, is the second largest chip the world has ever made. The GeForce RTX 20 series, computer graphics reinvented. The craftsmanship is unbelievable. This is the best design we have ever done. Everything from the voltage, the power regulation, and the thermal management system, it is designed for overclocking. Crazy amounts of overclocking. Not to mention, it is just so quiet. 10 gigarrays, 78 trillion RTX ops, 11 gigabyte frame buffer, starting at $499.
Like, it sounds redundant at this point, I get it, NVIDIA's loving all the TechTuber exposure here, but all of us at this point have made, what, 2 or 3 videos on the subject, and most of us agree that pre-ordering is stupid, and that's why I'm stressing it in this video again, because I feel as though for the first time in a good while, people are either blindly going into this or wholeheartedly resenting the launch, and I frankly despise both. Like, it's okay to be skeptical, but it's not okay to blindly hate. The alternative is also true. Blind love cuts both ways. You'll win some and lose some. All I intended my videos to do was to get you thinking about the oddities of this launch. I wanted to call into question a change of pace and voice my skepticism, something I believe should go hand in hand with science. We once believed the stars revolved around the Earth. It took a few skeptics to change our perspective, and many of them were persecuted for it. I'm merely offering an alternative point of view, yet some still may believe that my opinion is clickbait garbage and that AMD pays my bills. AMD hasn't even been in the game, frankly, for high-end gaming at this point. And if you ask me, Vega 56 and 64 for a majority of gamers were absolute flops. I think the RX 480 and 580 and 570 and 470 and whatever, those were fine, but 56 and 64 were not in the game. So yeah, I'm skeptical of this launch, very, and to answer the first point in this video, why did Jensen mislead all of us? Turing gaming cards weren't last minute. I mean, maybe he wanted folks to buy up current Pascal supplies, maybe tried to scare the public. After all, they had quite the surplus post-mining bubble, right? And now they're dishing off the excess supply to AIBs, so the problem is now theirs. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is more of a news video, but I do want to bring all this to your attention and tell you kind of what I think about buying a card now versus later, especially if you just really got your eye on like a 1080 or 1080 Ti for a good price. In my opinion, if you want to buy one now, you're not going to be disappointed with 1080 performance or 1080 Ti performance. I don't think that RTX cards are going to be a huge step up. You're not going to regret your purchase now is what I'm trying to tell you, because you're going to end up paying the same amount of money for the same performance or more, depending on how the RTX launch kind of plays out and how benchmarks roll out in time. I don't have RTX samples. NVIDIA's never contacted me for any graphics card launch. AMD has, but not NVIDIA. I'm not bitter about it. It's not why I'm upset. I mean, I was all for the Pascal launch, but now things are weird, and I want to know what you guys think. I know you've already voiced your concerns, most of you, but if you haven't yet, speak up, because it means a lot that you guys actually participate in the comments, because I read almost all of them, especially from the first day the video is posting. I'm gonna shut up now. Give this video a thumbs up if you thought it was cool. Dislike it if you feel the complete opposite. Click that red subscribe button if you haven't already. You can join us if you want to be super special, become a Science Studio member and get badges and icons and all that cool stuff. We'll catch you in the next video. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with us.